Ozzy Osbourne stumbled backstage at Birmingham's National Exhibition Centre, sweat still dripping from his wild performance with Black Sabbath. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice was shot, and his mind was racing from the adrenaline rush of screaming heavy metal to 15,000 headbangers. When he saw Bob Marley tuning his acoustic guitar in the adjacent dressing room, preparing for his own set, Ozzy couldn't help but laugh. "What's that hippie nonsense going to do after real music?" he slurred. What happened next would sober Ozzy up faster than any cold shower and teach him that healing comes in many forms. If you love discovering the untold stories behind music history's most incredible moments, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell because we uncover the hidden gems that shaped the legends we know today. Birmingham, England, October 13th, 1978. The National Exhibition Centre was hosting Heavy Reggae Night, an experimental festival that paired heavy metal acts with reggae performers. It was an unusual combination, but promoters were betting that both genres shared something in common: rebellion against mainstream society. Black Sabbath had just finished their set, delivering a punishing hour of doom-laden metal that left the audience drained and exhilarated. Ozzy had been in particularly dark form, channeling his personal demons into songs like War Pigs and Iron Man, screaming about warfare, destruction, and psychological torment. Offstage, Ozzy was a mess. The pressure of fronting metal's most influential band, combined with his increasing reliance on alcohol and drugs, was taking its toll. He'd been struggling with depression and anxiety, using the aggressive energy of metal as an outlet for feelings he couldn't otherwise express. Bob Marley was scheduled to perform next, representing a completely different musical philosophy. Where Sabbath preached darkness and despair, Bob spread messages of hope and redemption. Where metal was about releasing anger, reggae was about finding peace. The contrast couldn't have been more stark, and Ozzy found it amusing in his intoxicated state. "Look at this guy," Ozzy said to his bandmates as they passed Bob's dressing room. "Sitting there all peaceful with his little acoustic guitar. What's he gonna do? Sing everyone to sleep after we just melted their faces?" Bob looked up from his tuning, taking in Ozzy's disheveled appearance with compassionate eyes. He could see past the leather and studs to something wounded underneath. "Evening, brother," Bob said calmly. "Good show tonight. Felt your energy from here." Ozzy was taken aback by the respectful response. He'd expected defensiveness or pretension from this hippie musician. "Energy? That wasn't energy, mate. That was pure aggression. Real music for people who aren't afraid to face reality. Not this peace and love rubbish you're about to put these people to sleep with." Bob set down his guitar and studied Ozzy more carefully. Behind the bravado and chemical haze, he saw pain, confusion, and a soul crying out for healing. "What kind of reality you facing, brother?" The question hit Ozzy unexpectedly. For a moment, his defensive wall cracked. "Reality where everything's falling apart. Where you wake up feeling like death every day. Where the only time you feel alive is when you're screaming your guts out on stage." Bob nodded thoughtfully. "Sound like you carrying some heavy burdens, man." "Heavy burdens?" Ozzy laughed bitterly. "That's what metal's for. You take all that weight and you smash it against the wall until it breaks. You don't sit around singing about how everything's going to be all right when it's obviously not. But what happened after you smash it against the wall?" Bob asked gently. "Do the burden go away, or do you just have to smash it again tomorrow?" Ozzy didn't have an answer for that. "I'll tell you what," Ozzy said, his competitive instincts kicking in. You think your reggae can handle real darkness? You think your little peace songs can deal with the kind of pain that people actually live with? What you have in mind, brother? Paranoid. You know that song? Course you do. Everyone knows it. That's a song about real mental illness, real psychological torture. Let's see your hippie music try to handle that. Bob was familiar with the song. It was one of Sabbath's most famous tracks, a frantic expression of anxiety and mental breakdown set to heavy, driving music. It was the kind of song that spoke to people who felt trapped, paranoid, and overwhelmed by life. You want me to play your song? I want to see if you can. I want to see if your peace and love nonsense can handle real pain without falling apart. Bob considered this. He could hear the hurt beneath Ozzy's challenge, the desperate need to prove that his suffering was too real for simple solutions. What happened if I do? If you do, Ozzy scoffed. You can't. That song needs aggression. It needs volume and distortion and rage. Take all that away, and you've got nothing. And if I can? Ozzy paused, realizing he might be walking into something he wasn't prepared for. Then maybe I'll listen to what you have to say about reality. Bob picked up his acoustic guitar. Fair enough, brother, but I play it my way. What Bob Marley did with Paranoid over the next 5 minutes was nothing short of miraculous. He didn't try to replicate Sabbath's heavy approach or compete with their intensity. Instead, he completely reimagined the song from the ground up. He started with a gentle reggae rhythm, his fingers finding a hypnotic pattern on the acoustic strings. The frantic energy of the original was replaced by something more meditative, more contemplative. But somehow, this made the song's message of mental anguish even more powerful. When Bob began to sing, his voice carried the same pain that Ozzy had screamed, but expressed it differently. Instead of rage against the paranoia, Bob's interpretation acknowledged it, accepted it, and offered a different way through. Finished with my woman 'cause she couldn't help me with my mind, Bob sang, but his voice held compassion for both the singer and the woman who couldn't understand his struggle. As he continued, Bob began to subtly change some of the lyrics, not to alter the song's meaning, but to deepen it. People think I'm insane because I am feeling so much pain, but I'm just a soul who's searching for the way to heal again. The reggae rhythm created space around the words, allowing their meaning to breathe and resonate in ways the original's frantic pace never could. Where Sabbath's version was about being trapped in mental illness, Bob's interpretation was about the possibility of finding a way through it. Ozzy found himself mesmerized despite his skepticism. The song he'd performed thousands of times was suddenly revealing layers he'd never recognized. Bob wasn't dismissing the pain or pretending it didn't exist. He was showing that pain could be transformed into something that didn't consume you. When Bob finished, the backstage area was completely silent. Even the roadies had stopped what they were doing to listen. "How did you do that?" Ozzy asked quietly. "Do what?" "Make my song hopeful, without losing what it was about." Bob set down his guitar. "The pain's still there, brother. I don't take that away. But I show that pain don't have to be the end of the story." Ozzy was struggling to process what he'd heard. But the anger, that's what gives the song its power. That's what makes it real. Anger got its place, Bob agreed. But anger without direction just burned everything down, including the person carrying it. Your song, the way you sing it, it helped people feel they're not alone in their pain. That's beautiful. But my way, maybe it helped them see they don't have to stay trapped in that pain forever. For the first time in months, Ozzy felt something other than rage or despair. He felt curiosity, possibility, something like hope. You really believe that? That music can heal people? I know it can, brother. I seen it happen. Music reach places that medicine and words can't touch. But it have to come from truth, from real experience with suffering and recovery. Ozzy looked at this calm man with his gentle voice and peaceful demeanor. You've been where I am? You felt like you're losing your mind? Bob was quiet for a moment. Growing up in Trenchtown, watching friends die, feeling like the whole world set up against people who look like me. Yeah, man, I know darkness. I know what it feels like when paranoia seemed like the only reasonable response to life. Then how do you get from there to this? Ozzy gestured at Bob's serene presence. Rastafari teach that suffering is part of the journey, not the destination. Jah use our pain to teach us compassion, our struggles to show us strength we didn't know we had. The darkness real, but so is the light, both true at the same time. Ozzy was listening intently now, his defensive posture softening. Your music, Bob continued, it serve an important purpose. It tell people their pain is valid, their anger is justified. That's healing too. But maybe sometimes people ready to hear the next part of the story. What's the next part? That the pain you carry don't define you, that you can transform it into something that help others, that you can be wounded and still be whole. For 20 minutes, they talked about music, mental health, and the responsibility of artists who speak to people's pain. Bob shared his own experiences with depression and doubt. Ozzy talked about his struggles with addiction and self-destruction. I never thought of myself as someone who could help people heal, Ozzy admitted. I just thought I was good at expressing how fucked up everything is. But that's the first step in healing, brother. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge. Your music helped people admit their pain. That's sacred work. When Bob took the stage an hour later, Ozzy stood in the wings watching. The same audience that had been headbanging to Sabbath's crushing metal was now swaying to Bob's gentle reggae rhythms, many of them with tears in their eyes. Halfway through his set, Bob did something unexpected. He invited Ozzy onto the stage. Tonight we have a special guest, Bob announced. A man who understands that music can speak for people when they can't find words for their own pain. Ozzy walked onto the stage to surprised applause. He wasn't sure what Bob had in mind, but he trusted him in a way that surprised himself. Ozzy and I have been talking about different ways music can help people heal, Bob told the audience. Sometimes you need to rage against the pain. Sometimes you need to find peace with it. Tonight, we want to try both. They performed a unique version of Paranoid that combined both their approaches, Ozzy's raw emotional intensity with Bob's healing perspective. Ozzy sang the verses with all his usual power, expressing the torment and confusion. Bob joined for the choruses, adding harmonies that suggested hope without dismissing the pain. The effect on the audience was electric. People who'd come expecting to headbang found themselves crying. Metal fans discovered that vulnerability didn't diminish their strength. Reggae fans realized that anger could be a valid part of the healing process. When they finished, the venue erupted in applause that went on for nearly 10 minutes. After the show, Ozzy sought out Bob's dressing room. I've never experienced anything like that, Ozzy said. How it feel? Ozzy considered the question. Like maybe I don't have to carry all this weight alone. Like maybe there's something I can do with the pain besides just scream about it. Bob smiled. That's wisdom, brother. Before they parted that night, Bob gave Ozzy a piece of advice that would change his life. Don't be afraid of the darkness, man, but don't let it convince you that it's all there is. The friendship that developed between Bob and Ozzy became one of the most unlikely but meaningful relationships in rock history. Bob helped Ozzy find healthier ways to process his emotional struggles. Ozzy helped Bob understand that anger and gentleness could coexist in the same heart. Years later, when Bob died in 1981, Ozzy was devastated. He performed One Love at the funeral, his voice cracking with emotion as he sang Bob's words about unity and healing. After getting sober in the 1980s, Ozzy often spoke about Bob's influence on his recovery. Bob taught me that being vulnerable doesn't make you weak. He showed me that music could be medicine, not just a way to bleed all over people. The Sabbath song Sweet Leaf from their next album contained lyrics influenced by their conversation